great pleasure of having one of our members join us, Brother Ryan Wilson. And so I will introduce Ryan and then we will jump into the discussion. We are happy to have Ryan today. Ryan is the co-founder and CEO of TGS Holdings, a consumer lifestyle and hospitality company based in Atlanta, Georgia. The company's holdings consist of a gathering spot, a private membership club, and A3C, a music, tech, and film conference and festival. At the age of 24, Ryan and his business partner, TK Peterson, raised private capital from investors to open their first gathering spot location in Atlanta. Brother wasn't even 25 yet. The club has established itself as a home for creatives, business professionals, and entrepreneurs, and regularly hosts notable and culturally impactful events. Ryan recently opened the second gathering spot location in DC. I mean, I saw him up there just yesterday, so this is all news. Responsible for the company's overall management and strategic vision across all holdings, Ryan is leading the club's physical expansion to Los Angeles and forthcoming markets, as well as the company's digital platform, TGS Connects. Ryan has been honored as the Small Business Person of the Year by the Atlanta Business Chronicle, selected as one of the 2020 Atlanta Business Chronicle's 40 Under 40 honorees, and was the recipient of our very own John Lewis Emerging Leader Award by the 100 Black Men of Atlanta. He was also selected to join the inaugural class of Shea Moisture Social Justice Coalition. Atlanta Magazine named him one of Atlanta's 500 most powerful leaders from 2019 through 2021, and he was awarded Atlanta's Best Influencer by WXIA-TV. He also has been named one of the country's most influential African Americans in The Root and Ebony Power 100. Featured in notable national publications such as The Times, The New York Times, Essence, Black Enterprise, Forbes, Bloomberg, USA Today. He's a trusted speaker and regularly moderates conversations with thought leaders and other notable figures. He's also led to keynote presentations at some of the nation's most prestigious companies and universities, including his alma mater, Georgetown University Law Center, the Fuqua School of Business at Duke, Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth, and Kellogg at Northwestern. He's a native of Atlanta, currently an active participant in several civic and community organizations, serves on the board of Hands on Atlanta, Usher's New Look Foundation, the Woodruff Arts Center, the Atlanta Business League, the Community Foundation for Greater Atlanta, and Peace Preparatory Academy. He's a member of our chapter, the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, Atlanta Rotary Club, and co-chair for Black Men Count Initiative of Fair Count. He's also had the privilege and honor of hosting several political leaders at the gathering spot in hopes of encouraging the community to vote. He has hosted President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, Representative Stacey Abrams, Senator Ossoff, and Senator Warnock, to name a few. Ryan graduated from Georgetown undergrad and Georgetown Law Center and currently resides in Atlanta with his wife and daughter. And so we have a real star with us today, and we are thankful for the time. And we appreciate you, brother, and look forward to all the wonderful things that are horizon.
It's fantastic to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit of leadership. So tell us about your story. Tell us about your current role as CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and what's your story? How did you get here?
So I'll first start by saying that it's funny where life takes you. I wanted to be an attorney my entire life. The plan was never ever to start a business. I did grow up though where my parents were entrepreneurs, and I learned a lot. I'm hopeful that we can talk about what I learned and watching them start and scale companies. But I wanted to be an attorney and went to Georgetown and went to law school at Georgetown. But then I was back here working at a law firm between my first year and my second year of law school. And it was the same summer as the Trayvon Martin case. I'm sure like everybody that's participating in this conversation was glued to that trial. George Zimmerman, as we remember, is acquitted of Trayvon's murder. And I got an email from some friends. I've been doing some community organizing work in DC. And the email subject was, "What are we going to do?" And I responded back to them with the idea of building the gathering spot. I wanted a physical place, but more importantly, a community where we could come together to discuss that topic and what to do about George Zimmerman not being convicted of Trayvon Martin's murder, but I also wanted a broader context where we could all get together socially, and that started a journey. I called my parents and told them that I I didn't know, and this is about a 15-year plan to becoming an attorney at this point. I told them I didn't know if I wanted to practice law, but that I had an idea to start this club. And they said, "Look, okay, finish." So I did. I had 2 years left. I finished my law degree, but that entire time I was working on TGS, and we opened almost a year after I graduated from law school.
So I think that's very important for the young people that are tuning in and watching this discussion, is that you had your career set to be a lawyer. You were prepared to be a lawyer. You were head.
Hello, everyone. Kevin Gooch here. Thank you for your time.
You were in law school, and then you decided to pivot and become an entrepreneur. So, you don't have to know where you're going to end up. You just have to follow the path and let it lead you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important. I mean, especially when you're young, right? This is the opportunity to learn about what you're actually interested in, and make sure that you're exposed to everything that's available to you. I admittedly was not a person that was doing much exploration. It was law for me or bust. I didn't have any other really plans that I considered. I mean, this is from age, I mean, very young, right? I was saying this idea of being an attorney. Stay extremely flexible, right? Utilize this is a tremendous network here, just in this context, where you're able to see a lot of different examples of what success looks like, and then that gives you an opportunity to create your own version of it for yourself.
So then, what is the day like in the life of Ryan Wilson?
I'm in the community business. I'm blessed each day that my work consists of connecting people, of thinking about the best ways to bring people together. We host a lot of events at TGS, um, and so truly no 2 days are the same for me. But if there's a thing that ties them all together, is that I'm constantly in search of, from a community perspective, how, particularly as Black folks, how do we make sure that we're there for one another? Sometimes that's professionally, sometimes that's socially, or from like a friendship level. But my days are, I'm at home more than I've ever been. I spent the first several years doing this, um, living at TGS, but it's talking to a lot of good people that call the club home, including yourself, that makes my work special each day.
So you mentioned that your parents were entrepreneurs. What was it about, and oftentimes we find that young people are limited by the experiences sort of their parents. Like, that's what you see every day, that's what you learn, that's what you experience, and oftentimes you follow that path. What was it that made you want to be a lawyer instead of being an entrepreneur?
My drive to be a lawyer was about helping people. I mean, I thought, and if I looked at my heroes growing up, many of them had law degrees, and so I thought that was the way that you did it, right? You had to go to law school if you wanted to talk about important issues in our community. My parents are in the call center business, though, so there is nothing interesting about the call center business. They do some interesting things in their context, but the industry itself is not particularly that remarkable. I I wanted to not follow that path at all, but I see the work that we're doing now being very similar to what I imagined my work as a lawyer, what that would have been. It's connecting people. It's talking about issues that we care about. It's always going back and saying, what do folks not know that we can help to explore. That was the thing that led me to want to be an attorney. So I mean, for anybody that's in that kind of part of their journey, pay more attention to what you care about, what's interesting for you each day, than what the job title is. You'll figure out what that job is when you know what the passion that you have for whatever the thing is. When you can identify that, that's the thing that becomes the part that will connect to the eventual job title.
And I often say the Lord has a sense of humor, right? Because now here you are, a small business person of the year, and you're an entrepreneur.
My friends, not only am I a small business owner, I own a social club. And so for anybody that knows me personally, I'm not, I'll be honest with you, I'm not even that social of a person, right? The pandemic for me was from, the staying in the house perspective. It wasn't that difficult. I stay in the house anyway, right? So the idea that I own a business that is about talking to folks all day long, while I have a passion for doing it, I like to facilitate those experiences more than I actually am a person that naturally would go to them, right? And so no, I completely think that I'm a pretty big introvert. Never could have. My friends would laugh at me early on in this process, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna build a place. We're gonna have an event space. We're gonna go to events." And they would say, "Well, you don't even go to events now. Why do you want to build a space where you're gonna have them all the time?" And so yeah, and no, make sure that you stay your passions and again how those things are actually executed each day. That'll change over time, but there's a lot of ways to get there wherever there is, and you just have to keep that in mind. Run your race, but there's a lot of ways to get to very similar destinations.
Tell us a little bit about your role with A3C and sort of how did that come about?
Uh, very very interesting journey for A3C. So we had sponsored at the Gathering Spot a lounge at A3C, and it was the Gathering Spot Lounge at A3C. You could go and you could kind of get food and meet people, and that's what we care about at TGS, connecting folks, and so that's what we did at the conference. And I was on a panel that year. It was me, of an entrepreneur that you should know in town named Paul Judge, and Coach K was on. We were on this panel talking about the music business broadly. And shortly after the conference, we got a call. And what's funny is I didn't actually know Paul that well. I knew who he was, but that was really the first time we'd spent a lot of time talking with one another while being on this panel. But when the opportunity came and we learned, the A3C had been around for 15 years, and we heard that it was up for sale and called Paul and said, "Hey, there's an opportunity to buy this company. Is it something that you would be interested in?" And that started a very long conversation that eventually led to us buying the company together. So for the last 2 years, 1 year in person, and then last year virtual, we've hosted A3C, and it exists right now as the largest hip hop conference and festival in the world. And our plan is to continue to grow it out of Atlanta. To me, there's nothing more Atlanta than what A3C represents in the community that brings together.
Do you plan to leverage that for some of your social justice work as well?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when you look at politics and social justice and just civic engagement broadly, we have collectively have a responsibility to inject those issues into everything that we do. So at TGS, we're very politically involved. At A3C, we're very politically involved. Back in the 2019 version of A3C, leader Stacey Abrams was one of the keynote speakers that year. So I don't think that we should box politics into this area of our lives that is separate and apart from the rest of our life. There's a lot at stake in our community, and so to any opportunity that we can to make sure that these topics are engaged, we should use that opportunity. So yes, absolutely through A3C, but anytime in any company. I mean, I simply just don't believe that neutrality is an option given given what's at stake for us as a community.
So what do you think is the most important characteristic of a young person that says they want to be an entrepreneur?
There are a couple of things. The first thing I'd say is that you have to believe, right, that you are uniquely. There's a Denzel Washington quote that what he says. This is a longer quote, so I encourage you to go read the whole thing. But what he says is, true desire in the heart for something good is God's proof to you beforehand that it's yours already. And so I think about that quote often from an entrepreneurial perspective, because true desire, right, whatever that problem is that you want to solve, I believe that that comes from somewhere, right? But you have to be a good steward of whatever that opportunity is, right? And so is this a problem that you believe that you can solve, that you are not going to frankly let anybody else solve faster or better than you, right? And are willing to take the long and very difficult path of being the person to get whatever this thing is out into the world. If you feel like you check all of those boxes, then there's nobody more capable than you to execute on that idea. Nobody in the world. You should absolutely go and do it. But if it's not one of those ideas where you feel like, look, I'm going to go to the ends of the earth to make this thing successful, then that just might not be the idea that you should pursue full time. But um, there might be others, right? At another point in time. But you have to have that level of passion, because the game in many ways is designed for your heart to be taken out of the entire competition. So you've got to know from the get go that it doesn't matter what happens. I'm going to be the person that is in it to win it.
So the entrepreneurial mindset may not necessarily align with sort of a team member mindset, sort of at this stage of their career journey. So when you're looking for someone to add to your team or growing your team, what is it that you look for in a person that you want on your team? And then what is it that you look for in someone that you want to push, promote to leadership?
They're actually very similar things, right? I'm a person. I have I have a motor, right? I work, right? I do this. I tell folks often, like, this is a full contact sport for me. I do this for real every day, all day, and I do it. I mean, I do it with real intensity. And I look for folks that have that sort of passion about their role and responsibility in the company, and take on that approach of that, like, whatever it takes for me to be successful, I'm going to do. Now, I think that there are certain fundamentals, right, that are required in any environment. You've got to be honest and forthcoming. You got to be a person that has a high integrity. But again, I look at those as kind of the foundational elements that should exist in any context. Past that, it's about who's willing to go on the floor and try to win a championship. This is for me, y'all, not happy to be here. I just want to make the playoffs, and if we win a couple games in the first round, we'll be okay. I want to win a championship, and so I want folks that are willing to practice every day like they want to win a championship as well. So, championship teams and champions, they have certain habits and ways of being that are unshakable. Their teammates, a lot of times when they actually win, exhibit those same qualities. And so I'm looking to try to, one, make sure that I'm that person, but then two, make sure that I'm rolling with the championship team. So when it's time to go play, we've got every position is ready to be successful.
So you mentioned your parents earlier and how they were entrepreneurs, and it's hard to not be sort of mentored by your parents that are doing this work in your household. What sort of lessons did you learn from them on their entrepreneurial journey? And then are there other mentors that you had that played a prominent role in your life? And the most important piece for the mentors that aren't your parents, how did you maximize those relationships?
So my parents were a tremendous. I wouldn't be having this conversation without their tremendous influence. I mean, there was one part early in the journey where my dad said to me, I was thinking rather small about what the opportunity was for us to get the business off the ground, and he said, "Son, small ideas will keep you small. It's important for you to fight for the best possible version of your idea." And so that's been a challenge that has been issued to me really at a bunch of turns in the business, but in that moment was pivotal in getting us to the next level. And there are a number of folks that I can name that have been extremely influential in making sure that we frankly didn't make mistakes that they may have made at other points. I'll say this though, as a student, right? Everybody to a certain extent is your mentor to the extent that you can learn something from just about everybody. And I take an approach to where every conversation that I am in, I feel like there's something that there's some nugget of information or inspiration that I can learn that will make me a better entrepreneur, a better parent, a better whatever, right? And so I stay in that mode. And there are folks that are mentoring me that don't know that they're mentoring me because I'm paying attention to everything that they are doing. I'll give you one example of a person that I had the opportunity to speak with formally, but former former president of Morehouse, but an entrepreneur here in town named Harold Martin. Harold doesn't know or didn't know until recently that he's been mentoring me for a long time, but the example that he set and how he has talked about being in business and being in contact with his in relationship with his family have been tremendous points of inspiration for me. And so, uh, I think that we use that the word mentor. I think sometimes, and it feels like there's an overly burdensome responsibility. Mentorship is about making sure there's an exchange of information. You ask me, what do mentors look for, or what am I looking for? Eh, to me, folks that want to learn, including myself. I look at any. I am the mentee in some context or the mentor in others, but in either title, I'm a person that's learning something. Is how I approach the relationship. And so be the person that is well prepared for whatever conversation it is that you're having as a mentor or mentee. Real research, not the first page of Google research, but like true, like deep, deep research, and making sure that the questions that you're asking are specific. That maybe is the last thing I'll say. To get something out of a person that has a wealth of information but not a lot of time, you got to ask them specific questions and the thing that you actually want to know. And I make sure that when I'm in those conversations that I'm pointed about what I want to get out of the discussion so that they're able to lead me in the right direction.
To your point, a lot of our young people are sort of intimidated by looking at the mentor-mentee relationship and not really knowing how to get the most out of those relationships. And so I think it's important to sort of talk about as a mentee what you need to bring to the table to maximize it. But then I also think it's important to talk a little bit about how you as the mentee can still help and invest in the mentor as well, and how you should go through the relationship with a mindset of, are there any ways that you can actually add something to the relationship? So do you have any sort of examples of where you had a mentor relationship and you added something to it to show that it goes both ways?
Yeah, plenty. I mean, I think that the longer you are in any relationship, that the student becomes the teacher genuinely, right? There are changes that happen that sometimes the student is more connected to than the mentor. Any good mentor, y'all, knows that they don't have the answers to everything. I think any good person, I'll go farther than that. Any good person knows that it's a constant quest to continue to absorb new information. As for specific moments, and I don't know if I can point to just one thing. I get inspired though and take information from, again, like really small things. I'll give you an example. Early on in when I was in DC and we had this idea, I realized that folks that drove taxis in DC had the best information about what was happening in DC more than anybody, right? Like they knew where all the hot developments were. They knew where folks were going to. They knew when Congress was in session and who was coming in town to participate. And so, as a part of our research for TGS, part of the investment that I made into the business, as funny as this sounds, was just going and riding in taxis and talking to the folks that were driving around town all day. Did I call them mentors? No, but should I have? Yes, because that's what they were doing for me, right? And so again, be a person that can take the smallest bit of information and move from that on to saying I can use that in some other context, and you will be surprised by what you learn. But no, I've been in. I mean, now we'll be 5 years old in March, and there are plenty of people now that I went to at the beginning of the process that now come to me and say, "Well, how do you do that? How the technology piece that y'all are implementing? Like, I want to get that into my business, or I'm super aware of what's happening in the small business world right now, and I'm getting questions about, well, how does the regulation for this impact our companies?" And so I just make sure that the same way they spoke to me in love, I speak back to them in love as well.
So you mentioned earlier that you are in a business that's driven by social connections, social communities, and it is called the gathering spot where people gather. Well, when this pandemic hit, all of that had to sort of stop. We couldn't gather, we couldn't be social like we were. And of course, that dealt a major blow to society as a whole. So, what are the biggest
Absolutely.
obstacles that you had to manage through as CEO of this social community that comes together and gathers with
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, the business community, creatives, all hard hit segments of
Yeah.
society from this pandemic? And how did you navigate those obstacles?
When we first started TGS, we had the early conversation I mentioned about George Zimmerman, but I went back and I was reading what we said during that time, and what I was writing about specifically was this idea of connection, about community. And so COVID hits, and there's a couple of things that I had to really reckon with quickly. The first is, look, as an entrepreneur, you're constantly under crisis. There's a new fire every day. There's always a problem that you're trying to overcome. And I needed to put and try to contextualize what was a big problem in COVID, but just to put it in line with all of the other problems that we had figured out how to overcome over the years. I knew that was first how we had to just like mentally approach this time. And then the second thing that I did was I realized that the mission, the reason why we were doing this work every day, that could actually never be compromised, right? That if we stayed true to why we were doing this, that we would ultimately be fine, right? And the why for us was people, it was about connection. So the setting was going to shift. We would have to go virtual like this, and there, similar to the 100 Black Men, there were going to be events that we canceled, but the why we do what we do, COVID could never take away, right? And so during those hard moments, that's what I would focus on. Why did you get started in doing this in the first place? And that this too shall pass, as long as you stay tied to the reason why you got going. I'll venture to say I'm fortunate to be a member of the 100, and COVID can't take away what has happened, or frankly what will happen with this organization, because there's a reason why, that's a real thing, why we all are together with one another. There are real things that are accomplished with this community in the 100 context. And so COVID, it was difficult. I called my mom and I said, "Mom, they're saying you can't gather on the news, and we're called the gathering spot. I don't know what this what I could have never imagined that this would be something that would happen to us, but our business is about people, and if we stay tied to that, we'll be okay." And fortunate that the community at TGS agreed and believed that the business we were in was community and not the space business, because if it was space, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I would be trying to figure out what to do next, I guess.
How did A3C navigate the pandemic? I mean, considering that it's sort of a music conference, how did you navigate it in that context?
we went virtual there at A3C2, but we had a good experience. We the keynotes were Swiss Beats and Timberland. We streamed the entire thing over Facebook. We had the most folks actually participate in the conference because it was online that we've ever had, and it wasn't the type of year that we would normally have. Folks, we bring people together in A3C two, but it happened, and the goal of making sure that there was good information shared and that the connections happened, those are that all happened this year. So um I think in entrepreneurship, right, you have to be a kind of an undying optimist in trying to solve problems. And so I could spend time talking to y'all about how sad it was at points in this journey, but I would rather spend that time talking about how we analyzed what could get done, what was possible, how do we create new opportunities, because that was really the thing that got us. I don't know if we're through it. We're That's what's gotten us through it so far, right? And we'll continue to get us through any challenge that comes our way, because we'll stay tied to why we got started in the first place. And look, I don't know about y'all, but like COVID can't take that away from. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize hurt and hardship that is, definitely been brought. We have faced it too, right? But I don't think that we can give our I don't know, all of our energy to to staying in that space. We got to talk about what we can do.
So, were there any lessons learned or things implemented during the pandemic that will outlast the pandemic? Were there any shifts in the business operations that you think will outlast the pandemic?
I definitely think, I mean, we had to get better. I think, like a lot of organizations online, and had to get better quickly. And we were fortunate that we had kind of the bare bones of an online experience and the ability to be able to watch content online. But we had to dive in and really, do that better and more. And I think that that'll be something that sticks with us, particularly as we build clubs across the country. Now we have a platform that even after the pandemic is over, you'll be able to watch in Atlanta what's happening in DC. And so in this experience, like I think any other, there are lessons learned and good things that will be taken away from it. Bad things too, right? I'm not saying that it's been all roses, but for where there have been good things, I'm really appreciative about the shifts that we've made, and I think that they'll have an impact on us for a long time to come, especially virtual stuff.
So let's talk a little bit about you sort of personally as a leader and sort of your leadership journey. What are some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome in your career? I would imagine being a young person doing all the amazing things that you are doing and have done, you probably bumped into some generational tension at some point along the way. Are there any stories around that and other obstacles you've had to overcome in your career?
We could be here for a really long time. I mean, I walked into a lot of offices, 24 years old, no experience in business, no money of any kind. There was one time where we had a really big bill that was about to come due, and the person called us and said, "Look, I want you to make sure that you pay me." And I remember looking over to TK, who's my business partner, and being like, "We don't have anything. There's nothing actually. There's actually nothing to take." But no, I think that the thing that we learned during we still learn to that time is, I mentioned it earlier, but being well prepared, being well researched is key, right? You've got to make sure that, like, folks can't take away the time that you put in to be prepared for the conversation, right? I came into the room knowing that, like, I've got a couple of things that I know are going to be stacked against me, but they're not going to be able to add to it that I don't know what I'm talking about. The second thing that I did is that I surrounded myself with experts. So I had never been in the restaurant business, but I brought somebody into the business that it was his 42nd restaurant. I brought the best architects, the best of anything that you could do in our business. I got those folks around us. So where there were concerns about what we could do, well, I would say, look, I'm well researched and I'm gonna work harder than anybody, but like this person who's on our team is fantastic at this. And so if you don't believe me, you should believe us because we're in this together. But even with that, y'all, I mean, we had a ton of people that said, absolutely not. This is ridiculous. You won't ever be successful. A ton. And for entrepreneurs that are out there, look, start to take pride in those no's, right? You almost need them to a certain extent. If you're doing something that's disruptive, if it's actually new, then the market shouldn't get what you're talking about. Like take pride in the fact that you're gonna hear people kind of say, I don't know what you're talking about, and that doesn't make any sense. Because if they don't see it instantly, that is sometimes confirmation that you are actually headed in a direction that makes a lot of sense. So all of the things that make you you, and again, I believe that that desire for whatever it is that you're trying to solve, that comes from somewhere. But know when you hear the person that tries to tell you that it's ridiculous, that a lot of times they're scared, trying to put their own fears on you. But in addition to them being scared, they're going to simply not be able to see something that hasn't existed before in many instances. So as the person with the vision, right, it's again your responsibility to be a good steward of that vision and fight through those moments. It got to a point where I believed that I wasn't crazy, that they were crazy, that they didn't understand what we were talking about. And that was good because if we were right, we were going to be really right, and they were going to be really, really wrong. And again, you know, you look over time, um, that's proven to be for some of the conversations that we were having early true.
So I often say that I believe that leadership is a willingness to fail publicly, right? Because you're out front. If things go wrong, you're going to be the person that catches all the heat and all the smoke. And it's a risky proposition. When things go well, you got to give the credit to the rest of the team. So it's a tough place to be in. So what motivates you to deal with the daily grind of being a leader?
Wow, what an opportunity to be alive is how I feel about it. I'm grateful, y'all. I don't look at this as a burden. I mean, it's one of those, it sounds cliche, but like, you know, if you could, you know, at certain points in your life, if you could imagine having the problems that you have now, you're right, you would have been grateful to be able to say that you have the shot. I'll use a basketball analogy. I mean, I look at it like I'm if it's 2 minutes left in the game or 10 seconds left on the clock, put me in, coach. I want to be the person that takes the shot, right? And I want to be the person that has the opportunity to do it. Thank God it's me, right? Like not because I'm special, but I've been trying to prepare for this moment. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we only get to do this thing one time, and I'm gonna make sure that for the one shot I have at life, that I'm not going to have any regrets, and I'm not going to live smaller than anybody. So I jump in and really again I think understanding where you come from, your history is important, but I feel like I have a responsibility for generations of folks in my family um, that didn't have the opportunity to do some of these things. And so again, to this idea of being a good steward, I got to push that as far as I possibly can so that the next generation of folks behind me can continue to push it further for the next generation after them. So, but I look at that as a privilege, as an opportunity, not as a burden. And um, it is a grind, but wow, thank God it is. Thank God I have a chance to grind in this context. If this is what the grind is, thank God I have a chance to be where this is, what I get a chance to do each day.
Our head football coach at the University of Georgia, he said something one day that I think encapsulates what you just said. And he said, pressure is a privilege. Everybody does not have that opportunity to have that pressure put on. Pressure is a privilege.
And not only do they not have the opportunity, but like I think you have to adopt the approach, and not from a place of arrogance, y'all, but really just with like, man, I worked and I prayed for the opportunity to have this problem, to have this challenge. Thank God I get the chance to actually try. Thank God it's
And
me
that
that
someone
gets the chance
believed
to
in you
actually
enough, someone believed in you enough to put you in that position.
at 100%. And because folks have done that, it is my responsibility to honor what you have believed about me and do absolutely everything I can to take advantage of whatever this opportunity is. So yeah, it's a grind, right? But what is the alternative? What other way would I want this to happen? I want it like this. I want the chance to be able to 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 try, right? And that to me is the greatest privilege that anybody can get, the ability to be able to have the opportunity to take the shot. So if you if you look at it alternatively, you certainly should not be in business, right? Because that's all this is dealing in considerable risk, and all the time being the person that says, no, I want to take the shot, and I'm gonna miss, but then next time I get a shot, I'm still gonna shoot. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
not gonna stop me from being a shooter. That's what I am. I mean, and if you look at basketball, good shooters, whether they're on or they're off, they shoot. Right? It
Mm-hmm.
just That's what they do.
So you lead a team that is growing with the various clubs opening, the different ventures with A3C, TGS. What is your leadership philosophy? Some people are servant leaders. Some people like to invest in their team, like that sort of. What is your leadership philosophy? And then what is your North Star when it comes to leadership?
I don't ask my folks to do anything that I'm not willing to do. And no time, no task. And I think that servant leadership model is probably the one that I identify with the most. But I think that you as a leader have to demonstrate that not only are you professionally connected to the goals that the company has, but that you're personally tied to them as well. So I'm transparent about my 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 concerns and the things that I'm excited about, and I make sure that my team shares in whatever those whatever those wins and losses are collectively. We're in this thing together, but I start from the premise that there's nothing that I'm going to um, demand of my team that frankly I probably don't demand more of from myself. And as long as we're honest with one another and tied to continuing to accomplish our goals, we'll make mistakes, but ultimately we'll be okay. So
How
I
did you
I don't
develop that leadership philosophy? And are there any like books or anything that you would recommend to folks that are interested in leading?
there I developed it, I think, like a lot of leaders by making a lot of mistakes. I mean, early on I mentioned, we were 24, 25 when this thing got started, and I would ride the roller coaster of the things that were happening in the business. We went up, I went up, and we went down, I went down, and I realized that was not helpful to folks on our team. They needed something that was um, much more stable in their. They needed a leader, maybe better said, that was much more consistent and flat and and always analyzing what opportunities still existed and never getting too high or too low. Um, I there are some books I think that in our community we need to highlight, you know, doing it more than reading about it. And truly, I mean, I'm a big proponent of those non-traditional examples that are a lot of times the places where you learn the most. So I can't say that I get good business advice from business gurus. I get good business advice from people who just out in the world that give you insights into things that they care about personally um, and their jobs. Right. I mean, again, it doesn't come from a lot of times the ways and from the places that you would expect it to come from.
I to seize on one point that you mentioned, I like to talk about the opportunities that may have been missed or things that you may have done differently along the way, because a lot of leaders are scared of having a failure and what it will do for their career. And I like to show that we all have had situations that we would do differently if we had a chance to do it over again, and look at where we are now. So for you, what are
Yeah.
one or two of those things that you would have done differently if you had it to do over again?
One quick word about failure. Look, searching for failure is a very unhelpful thing to go and do. Like it doesn't help anything. You should you know that it potentially is coming, but don't obsess over going to try to find it. I don't do that. Like for me, if I walk outside this room and failure is there, then I got to deal with failure once I get out there. But I'm not going to do this, you know, looking under every stone to try to find failure. I spend that time looking for where there's opportunity. Um, so many mistakes and so many failures. I mean, I make them daily, weekly for sure, and have made them annually for the entire time we've been doing this. I'll give a another sports analogy. I grew up a big Tiger Woods fan, and the thing that Tiger does exceptionally well, more better than anybody, is that even when he hits a bad shot, in the walk between that bad shot and where the ball is, he disconnects emotionally and really almost can't remember the shot that got him into the situation. I uh, I take that approach with with life, right, and certainly in business. I don't hold on to the mistakes. They're gonna happen, and I got to get to where the ball is and shoot and take my shot from that place, not in thinking about my bad tee shot. So, I we've blown deals, we've lost money. I've had chances to hire exceptional people. Um, we've flopped. We're in the hospitality business. We flopped on events. We flopped on F&B experiences. There's been failure all the way around, but the way that we get back to it as a team is we analyze, what went wrong, but then we quickly move on to what we can do to make sure that that mistake doesn't happen again. Again, we're not searching for failure. We're searching for how we get better.
Let me ask you this. How do you deal with difficult conversations and with difficult people? Because, if you are on a leadership journey, you're going to encounter some folks that want to see you fail, some folks that take more pride in gotcha moments than in adding to the conversation and adding to the team. So, like, how do you as a leader deal with difficult conversations that you have to have, and then deal with difficult people that you encounter along the way?
Directly, I'm extremely honest and direct about whatever it is that we're talking about and whatever my concern is. I don't wait. I don't save it for the meeting the next day. I had a mentor that said to me years ago. He was the vice president of the university I went to, and he said, Ryan, sometimes you have to overwhelm the problem. And so if there's a problem, my goal is to overwhelm that problem with a solution. And if that means having a tough conversation, again, I stay rooted in the reason why we need to have the conversation, and less tied to the emotions of whatever we're going to discuss. There's a broader mission. There's a lot of people at TGS at this point. We've got 115 people on our team, right? I have a responsibility to them. I can't not have a conversation with you because I'm concerned about you being difficult. We have some stuff that we're trying to get accomplished. So stay very mission focused. I stay similar to I said no high highs and no low lows. I stay extremely flat in those conversations, but I talk to folks about what my concerns are and why I can and I stress why I'm concerned. Right. A lot of times folks can hear you quickly on the what you're concerned about. I spend a lot of time on the why I'm concerned. So this is important to me because, and then what comes after that because is where I spend the most time. So this isn't me just having this conversation just to have it, but having it because I really genuinely want to be able to move us forward, and I want to know if you want to be a part of that journey. But in the long run, if a person is too difficult, unfortunately, for them in most instances, I don't. I mean, we have in business and I think in personal life need to be connected to one another and speaking to one another in love. And so if that's not what I feel from that person, that's certainly what I'm going to bring to the conversation. But if that's not what I feel from the person, then this is probably not a good environment for them. And I'll tell them that in this way. Let's part ways as friends rather than us having to have a difficult relationship.
If you had a college student that came up to you and told you they wanted to be a leader, what advice would you give that college student on leadership? And then if that person was actually a younger professional that had gone through their career, maybe late 20s, and they wanted to embark on a journey of leading their organization or leading their enterprise, what advice would you give them on being a leader?
Leadership is about responsibility, and I think that those that seek to be the leader for title or for power, that's not the reason. That's not actually what comes with leadership. Leadership is problem solving. It's staying tied to the issues and concerns that folks have. It's about making sure that in many instances you put yourself last, not first, right? It's about being the person that's in the door the earliest and out the door the latest, right? And so, um, I try to refocus folks on what problem are you trying to solve and why are you trying to solve it, rather than being obsessed with this idea of being a leader. I'll be honest with you. I don't wake up in the morning and say, I am a leader. I'm more spending more time focused on the responsibilities that I have. I've got 115 people that count on me to bring my best self to work every day. I've got investors. I've got members of the club that have that same expectation. Leadership is heavy. It's a responsibility, right? Being a good steward of all of that is not something that I take lightly, and certainly don't get too lost in the sauce on in the fact that my title is co-founder and CEO of the Gathering Spot, right? But in many ways, I'm renting that. That's not a title that I likely have for the rest of my life, and what folks will remember was not what I called myself, but ultimately how I made them feel. So yeah, anybody that's pursuing leadership, pursue solving a problem, pursue being a good resource for people, and I think that's when folks will select you as being the person that's going to lead a certain initiative. But I don't think it's a bad thing to aspire to, but you've got to know the reason why you're trying to be a leader.
I totally appreciate the sort of focus on problem solving and doing the good work and letting things sort of fall into place. But I think there's also something to be said about being bold and being courageous, because
Yeah.
you have problem solvers that aren't sort of bold or courageous enough to step out and say, I will take this problem on. And if something goes wrong, I will take the blame for that. So there's something to be said about that in that leadership
I agree.
mix.
I
So
100% agree.
Oh no, go ahead.
Sorry. I 100% agree with that. I think this conversation you kind of it's kind of on a spectrum, right? There's some folks that seek leadership for the sake of it. There's some folks that are shy about becoming leaders. So my last comments were more about those folks that are seeking leadership for the perception of being a leader. For those folks that have that internal interest but are shy about stepping into that role, look, again, you only get a chance to do this thing one time, right? And the world, frankly, and the community needs your contribution. You got to look at this in the way a leader does, outside of your context, and realize that special gift that you have, your analysis of this situation, the strategy that you're going to bring to whatever it is that we're trying to tackle, we need that, right? And so we need you to step up and be bold, because if not you, then who, right? And for the challenges that we have in our community, the shyness at this point is not a value that we can continue to allow to exist where there's talent. So if that feels like you, I'll just say to you plainly, we need you, right? Like step outside of the concerns that you have for a minute, and know that the community is counting on you in many ways to bring that gift to us. And you have all the skills, right? I mean, one thing that I learned when I went to class, I was not the smartest person in any of my classes. But what I realized when I got to college, that the person sitting to my left and to my right, they weren't any more smart than me, but it was a confidence thing, right? And I said to myself early in my freshman year, well, if this is going to be about a competition, right, and about what we're going to bring to this setting, the classroom setting, I got to bring all of who I am into this. I can't be small. My mama didn't send me up here just to be played. Like my mama didn't send me up here to sit in class and be shy. She sent me up here to get an education. So I've got to be the full me here, right? I got to make sure these folks understand that I was here, right? Like you shouldn't have let me in if you didn't want me to be here, because now I'm here, and because I'm here, I'm gonna say and express the things that I feel like are important. And again, I think that for the challenges that we have, we need more folks with that sort of energy. We need you to step up and be the one. There's nothing wrong with that.
I have 2 or 3 other quick questions for you. So first one is, what are you most proud of, and what's been your most awe-inspiring moment where you're just like, wow, I can't believe that just happened?
I'm most proud of the community at TGS. There are now we exist as the largest city club in Atlanta, and I'm most proud of the group of folks that call the club home, and grateful to them. And full stop. It's been a humbling experience to be able to go from sitting talking to TK about a potential place to watching folks actually come to make the club a real thing. There are a lot of moments over the years, but one that really stuck out to me recently was we're 12 days before the election, before the general election in November, and the White House calls, and they say that Senator Harris, now Vice President Harris, was going to come to TGS for a day of activities. And for me, that was a really powerful moment, because we've been working really hard to try to make sure that folks were engaged in the election, and to have the White House, and particularly her, want to spend some time at TGS at that critical moment in the campaign was a really special thing. And so I could point out a lot, but that was one that was pretty recent, that was a special moment.
What do you want your legacy to be as a leader and an entrepreneur?
I just want people to remember what I stood for, and what that is that if we stay with one another and connected to one another, that things, really powerful things can happen, and that I believed in that, and worked to try to make that so. So it doesn't really matter what context we're talking about. I just want people to remember that if we stay together, particularly as Black people, and stay really concerned about the well-being of the collective, that that we can make some meaningful progress in the short term, but in the long term, really have the sorts of futures that we've dreamed of for a long time. I believe strongly in that, and I don't know if we'll get there. I don't even know necessarily where there is, but I want folks to remember that I was committed to us trying to get there.
Okay, and we'll close with this one. What is your vision for the future of TGS? Where do you see it going? What should we expect in the future for TGS and A3C for that matter?
We're going to keep building clubs across the country, and we're going to do it with the goal of continuing to connect people, and with the inspiration of what I just talked about, of building a really powerful community of folks that are together. And we'll always be rooted in Atlanta, but you can expect to see us continuing to build clubs everywhere. And on the A3C front, I mean, that's an Atlanta experience that will continue to be an Atlanta experience that we hope to continue to grow. But all in all, I mean, we're in the community business, so what you can expect for us is continuing to try to grow and scale community.
Okay. Well, anything for the good of the order?
I appreciate everybody that has joined us. Anything that we can do at TGS, personally, professionally, don't hesitate to give us a shout. And want to give a special. I'm a new member to the 100 Black Men, but there are so many people, including the chairman here, that have been supportive of us for many years. So first, thank you, but to the gentlemen of this organization that have been around. I said this before. We were invited to join the. It's very special to have organizations like this, especially when you're young, be supportive of you. So I appreciate any opportunity to connect with this community.
Well, thank you very much, sir. This has been very enlightening, and I think our students and scholars will benefit from it, and we appreciate your time. I know you got a lot going on over there, so thank you so much, and we will be in touch.
See y'all soon.
Hello everyone, Kevin Gooch here. Thank you for your time today. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the work of the 100 Black Men of Atlanta, Inc. We are a 34-year-old organization that focuses on mentoring and making a difference in the community. We are a volunteer-led member organization with a roster that begins with Hammer and Hank Aaron and ends with Ambassador Young. And we have a lot of legends and titans of industry in between. And the common theme amongst these men is that we all came together to lock arms and truly make a difference to impact our community through mentoring, because what they see is what they will be. We appreciate all of the support that we've received throughout the years and in 2020. But unfortunately, we've had to cancel 3 of our biggest fundraisers for the year. That would be our 100 Honors, the Celebration Bowl, and Divots and Divas. And so as an organization, we need your help. We need more help. If you want us to continue to provide the programming that we've been delivering to our young people, if you want us to continue to deliver on that promise that we've made to positively impact the community by making a difference in the lives of the young people in these communities that are often left behind, these vulnerable young people, please support our organization. You can go to our website. You can make a donation there. You can connect with our members. You can call our office, and we will be happy to have you in the fold with us, supporting us, investing in us, so that we can do the same for the young people that we serve and this community that we serve.